30 minutes on paradigms.
What we're going to talk about is paradigms. And I don't know if you know what a paradigm is. If you had asked me 60 years ago what a paradigm was, I certainly couldn't have told you. In fact, if you had asked me 50 years ago, I couldn't have told you. Paradigm is it's sort of a relatively new word in the mind of the general public. And a lot of people wouldn't even know what it is. But a paradigm is a very important idea, and it stops us from living the life that we really want to live in more cases than not. So if you'll throw that slide up now, Scott, and look here for a moment. There is a man that played an enormous role in my life. And you can take that down and we'll throw it back up in a few minutes, Scott. 60 years ago, I had a gentleman sit down with me, not this one, you can take that down, Scott, please. And his name was Ray Stanford. And he gave me this book. And he said, Bob, if you will do exactly what I tell you, you can have anything you want. Now, I would imagine that there's someone in our audience right now that maybe in about the same spot I was in when he sat down with me. I had 2 months high school formal education. I had virtually no business experience. I worked in factories. I'd been in the Navy, working at dead-end jobs that weren't going anywhere. And I was 26 years old, but I was in a bad spot. And he sat down with me and he said, you know, Bob, he said, you can live whatever way you want. And he said, you can do the things you want. Well, he asked me if I've ever read anything, and I said, no, I didn't read. Now today, I've got a beautiful library here in the studio. I have another one in my home. But he introduced me to this book. Now, you'll see I've got elastics around it because the book is literally falling apart. And up until that time, if I told you I'd do something, the odds are pretty good I wouldn't do it. I had never kept my word on anything. I mean, I was a lost soul. But he said to me, he said, if you'll read this every day, do exactly what I tell you, you can have anything you want. Well, it's like I said, I didn't believe that. I mean, how could I believe it? You could have anything you want. I was earning $4,000 a year, and I owed $6,000. I was in bad shape. I was a lost individual. And so, I don't know why, but I decided to do exactly what he told me. Now, I'm going to tell you, if you will do exactly what I tell you this week, I guarantee a year from now, you're going to need a telescope to look back and see where you were right now. That's how much your life can change. And I don't even care how well you're doing. Because I've gone into some of the largest companies in the world and watched their sales go up by hundreds of millions of dollars when I teach them what we're going to just take a look at this week. And, you know, as I started to study this, my life started to change. Now, one of the first things I did was one of the first things he told me. He said, I want you to decide exactly what you want. I want you to write it on a card and carry it in your pocket. And that's exactly what I did. And I have a card. I've got it in a little plastic sleeve, and I carry it in my pocket. And what I've got on here is my goal. This is what I'm working towards. And he said, if you'll carry that in your pocket, he said, you're going to end up with it in your life. You know, I wrote on the card I wanted to have $25,000. That would be probably like you writing you want $1 billion. I mean, it was just so far out of reach. And he said, just keep reading it. And he said, do you believe it? And I said, no, I don't believe it. But I believed he believed it. And so he said, keep reading it. So I decided I would do that. And I did. Do you know that in a relatively short period of time, I had the $25,000, and I did it by cleaning floors. You see, he told me, he said, Bob, you got to be prepared to do anything honest to earn money. And he said, once you start earning it, if you study it, you'll learn how to earn money. And when you learn how to earn money, it's a whole different life. And he says, that's what I'm going to teach you. And so I did. And I was earning over $1 million a year. I started cleaning floors. I started cleaning one office. In less than 5 years, I was cleaning offices in Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Cleveland, Atlanta, and London, England. And I had done something to my mind. I didn't know what I had done, but man, I was winning in a big way. And I was just throwing the money all over the place because I knew where to get it. And I would go down to the Playboy Club I was on Park Lane, right beside the London Hilton. If you're in London, you'll know where that is. And I would go in there and I'd play roulette. And I didn't care if I lost. And because I didn't care if I lost, I usually won. Well, one day I thought, I'm being very irresponsible. And I really was. And I thought, how did this happen to me? You see, I didn't even know how it all happened because it happened so fast. And I couldn't even find anybody who could tell me. I had been raised to believe that if you're going to earn a lot of money, you've got to be really smart. I knew I wasn't that smart, but I was earning a lot of money. So I knew that wasn't right. I was raised to believe if you don't go to school, you'll never get a good job. I didn't have a good job. I owned the whole company. I couldn't figure it out. Do you know it took me 9.5 years? Well, 9.5 years later, I met this man that I showed you. His name, Leland Van de Waal. He changed my life completely. He introduced me to a concept I'm going to introduce you to. And when he did that, it was like everything I'd been studying. I'd been studying a lot of information, but I'd studied this book. I'd give this book to people, and they didn't change. And what he did, he brought everything together for me in a relatively short period of time. Now, here's a couple of things he told me, if you'll go back screen, Scott. And he said, Bob, he pointed out, he said, you are a unique individual. And he said, so am I, so is everybody else. And he said, you can literally create your own economy. You can do that. And he said, the only thing standing between you and what you want is yourself. It's all about the mind, Bob. He says, it's about your marvelous mind.
Landing page, email system, offer creation, sales script.
Bob, he says, it's about your marvelous mind. Then he started, thanks Scott, then he started to talk to me about the mind. And he said, you know, it's a strange thing, Bob, when we get talking about the mind, nobody's ever seen the mind. They have never seen the mind. Now, keep in mind that I was a very uneducated person. When you talk about the mind, I mean, I would think of psychiatrists, psychologists, behavioral scientists. No, he said, you want to get rid of those ideas. He said, the way I'm going to explain it to you is the way it was explained to me. And he said, we can show children how the mind functions. And he said, I'm going to show you something here that's rather interesting. And he said, Bob, understanding the mind and working in harmony with the laws governing the mind is essential if you really want to win in life. And then he started to tell me what a paradigm was. And he said a paradigm is a mental program that has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior. And he started to talk about that. He said it's a program in your subconscious mind that controls your behavior. And the paradigm has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior, and almost all of our behavior is habitual. Now I said, I want you to think about this, and I want you to think about it. We get out of bed in the morning, and we bang, away we go, we move into a